This is Ari Koretsky, and welcome to Jews You Should Know, introducing the broader community to interesting and inspiring Jewish men and women making a difference in our world. Some are already famous, some not yet so, but each is a Jew you should know. This week, in the spirit of the month of Adar, which at release date has just begun here in mid-February 2018, Adar being the month of the Jewish calendar in which the holiday of Purim falls out, Purim being the most joyous holiday on the Jewish calendar, I thought I would present a guest who, to my mind, is one of the most humorous and entertaining purveyors of Jewish content today, and that is Rabbi Gavriel Friedman. Rav Gav, as he's known, is a good friend of mine, and I think you'll note that this interview style is a little bit different, a little lighter and breezier than some of the others, but I think you'll really enjoy how his brilliantly comedic personality comes across, as does his passion for Judaism and for connecting Judaism to the Jewish people. Just a quick note of introduction, because it's not explained fully in our interview. Rav Gav, as he's known, has been teaching for the last 12 years or so at an institution called Aish HaTorah. Aish HaTorah is located in the old city of Jerusalem. For those unfamiliar, essentially it is a yeshiva, a place of study geared towards students of the widest ranging backgrounds, primarily those who did not grow up with a substantial Jewish education. And so you'll hear him reference very much what he's doing nowadays and how he's trying to bring Jewish heritage to this wide spectrum of Jews in Aish HaTorah. And without further ado, we are here with Rabbi Gavriel Friedman, the eponymous Rav Gav. How you doing, Rabbi?
Thank the good Lord. Baruch Hashem. Excellent. Alhamdulillah. Doing very good. Thank God. Thank God.
I'm glad you covered many languages there for all potential listeners. So I appreciate that inclusivity.
You got it.
Okay. So, Rabbi, you are live in Jerusalem. I am not in Jerusalem. I am in Maryland, but very excited to be schmoozing and want to just get a little sense of your background. Of course, I want to explore what you do nowadays as a teacher and how you employ wonderful entertainment and humor into your teaching presentations. But where did it all start? Where did you come from? What is the background for the great Rav Gav?
Okay, so it all started one summer. I don't know if it was night or day, but I was born in the beautiful picturesque Mount Sinai Hospital in Manhattan. But we moved around a lot, so it's let's get to the part that's relevant. We actually did a short stint in Maryland.
Nice.
For 3 years, I think. Born in Manhattan, lived in Brooklyn, moved to Maryland, moved to Passaic, New Jersey, and finally we moved to Woodmere, New York. So it's essentially, my father's a convict. Anyway, so essentially we, this doesn't go anywhere, does it? Anyway, so essentially I grew up in a place called Woodmere, New York. 5 towns. Went to a school called Hebrew Academy of Long Beach, HALB. Made my way to Davis Red of Sally Yeshiva High School for boys. And yeah, that's where it all started. I mean, I can tell you the quick rundown until today if you're interested. But
yeah, let's do it.
Okay, then let's do it. So like we said, Woodmere, New York, HALB, DRS. Went to Eretz Yisrael, to the Holy Land. Was in a yeshiva called Or Yerushalayim, OJ. After that, spent a short stint in Lander College for Men. That'd be 6 months in the base medrash there in the study hall. After that, back to yeshiva, Torah Moshe, a beautiful, beautiful yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael. I was there for 3 years. And then I started teaching in a number of different yeshivas until finally made my way to Aish HaTorah, where I've been there now since July 2nd, 2006. Thank the good Lord. So 11 and a half years plus. Thank God. Yeah, that's what we got.
July 2nd, that's the anniversary date, huh?
July 2nd, 2006. That's it.
Wow.
I remember it like it was 11 and a half years ago.
What brought you there? I mean, like, were you just kind of walking the streets of Jerusalem and, you know, in the old city, one of those Messiah guys? And
I was, not one of the Messiah guys. I am the Messiah. We discussed this. But
sorry about that.
That's okay, my disciple. But I was studying in a kollel. The programmer once sits and studies Torah the whole day. I had no plans of being involved in what I'm doing now. I was going to be a teacher. I thought I'd go into teaching in some capacity. Aish HaTorah was not on the screen because I had never heard of Aish HaTorah. So I didn't even know it existed. But it's a long story, but the long story short is that I had a cousin who was working in Aish HaTorah who recommended I meet with somebody there. And the whole thing was an accident. If I would have known what I was getting myself into, I never would have done it. Not now, saying that retrospect, meaning then. Now I'm happy.
Should I cut that before you made the disclaimer?
Exactly. There goes my job. But I'll tell you that, meaning at the time it was a mistake. I didn't even know what was going on. Wasn't interested at all. But whatever. One thing
what about it was a mistake?
When I was 17, I cared about the Jewish people. When I got older, I started saying, you know what, it's nice, but let's just learn Torah. And when I found out what Aish HaTorah was, it was a very awkward moment. I met with a fellow named Rabbi Jamie Cowland, who was my entrance into Aish HaTorah. I'm learning in Kollel. You understand? Again, I didn't get the outreach thing at all. And I sit down in his office, and he says, he's English, he says, so we've got Manchester, and we've got Fallowfield, and we've got Leeds, and we've got ourselves, what's that place? Come on. Oh, gosh. Oh, Madison, Wisconsin. And we've got and he starts on a whole, you probably know the Madison gig. I don't know if you know the Madison gig.
I don't know Leeds. I know Madison.
Okay, whatever. Madison was a whole story. Anyway, so, and I'm like, what does that mean you've got? Like, what do you mean you got? What do you got? I'm like, do you have any 10th grade modern Orthodox kids I can teach? Because that was what I was looking for, to teach yeshiva kids, He's like, this is Aish HaTorah, man. So I said, so do you have any 10th grade modern Orthodox kids? And that was my intro. And the whole thing, I was just speaking with him yesterday about this. He remembered the whole conversation. It was very funny. And whatever, he convinced me to give it a try. And thank the good Lord, it changed my entire life in a very, very beautiful way. So that's where I am today.
How would you say it changed your life?
Well, I mean, from the very get-go of Aish HaTorah itself, first of all, you get to understand what it means in the Gemara. The Talmud states in the holy book of Makos. Makos is one of the tractates, of the 36 tractates of the Babylonian Talmud. And it says on page 10, it says that I learned a lot from my rabbis, I learned a lot from my friends, and from my students. I learned more than everything. And I learned the most from my students. It's not just a platitude. It's not just oh, my students should like me. You guys, I learned the most from. That's not what it is. It's a real thing. When you get into a room with 30 guys from all over the world, from all different backgrounds, it totally changes your perspective. And it really, really opened my eyes to what it meant to learn. Even though I've been learning Torah, in an intense way, it totally opened me to ideas that I'd never even entertained. Hellenism and joining Christianity. I'm so sorry. Some of those. Have
a nice day, Rabbi Friedman.
Exactly. This message was brought to you by. Anyway, so that's that was in a positive way, very positive. Opened me up to caring a lot more about Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people. Like I said, I was joking, but I wasn't when I said at 17 I cared, and then I stopped caring. Not that I didn't care anymore, but it wasn't to the forefront of my mind. But it certainly has come back to the forefront that, caring about the Jewish people and more so. So that's the beautiful way in which it's changed tremendously for me.
What do you think initially attracted this rabbi to try to draw you in? Did he know you from somewhere? Did he think that you had a particular talent or penchant for this, or he was just desperate?
That's such a brilliant question. And you're really breaking into the story. If I told you the whole story, it's a long story. But if you do it like this, it makes it sound not as long. So he said to me, Rabbi Cowland, he's trying to sell me on this. And I am looking like that. I'm like, as soon as I found out what he's doing, I was like, the whole time, I was looking at him like, what? And after 2 minutes, I said, excuse me, I'm so sorry if I could just interrupt you. Do you not see? Do you not picking up on the cues? Not interested. You know what I'm saying? If we would switch seats here, I'd be get out of my office. Why are you still talking to me? So he said to me, I meet a lot of people. Because where McCallan's job was at the time, 13 or 14 years, what it was, is to take the students of Aish HaTorah and place them in different communities, for teaching roles. That's what he did. He was a job placement guy. And he said a lot of people come into my office and they think that they can do this. But not everybody can. I don't think all of them can. There are others that come in that don't think they can. But I think that they can. You fall into the second category. So I said, at this point, we've been speaking for maybe 5 minutes. And he was doing most of the talking. So I said, you know me for 2 minutes. How could you even possibly suggest that I would have a chance in doing this? And I'm not even interested. It's not like I'm the latter category of not that I don't think I can. I didn't even think of it at all. So I said, why would you say that? After 5 minutes, he said, I meet a lot of people. This is what I do. And now my job is to convince you to give it a try. That's what he said. So I said, listen, as long as we're clear that this is a waste of time and I'm wasting your time, I don't mind if you waste mine. So, okay, we'll wait. I'll hear you out. And that's how the conversation started. And I guess he was right. He convinced me, my wife and I, to go on a pilot trip to England like a week later. We were in England a week later. And they wanted us to move to England. The whole thing was so bizarre because I kept saying I'm not interested.
Had he heard your impersonations before? Is that was driving?
But he actually even said to me, he's like, when you go to England, do everybody a favor. No jokes about Americans and Englishmen. Like he was very he's like, none of your stupid jokes, So I was like, okay, man. Like I didn't even have any jokes. I didn't have any classes. I didn't have anything. I was just learning in yeshiva. I never did this before. But he sent me out there. I went out there and I actually met with Naftali Schiff, who was the head of Aish UK, and we sat down. It was a whole thing. It's, again, long story, but in short, where they wanted us to move didn't make sense for us. And so we ended up dropping the whole thing.
Violated the terms of your parole, or what was the?
Well, yeah, that was, I was outside of the jurisdiction. It was the whole thing. And
ankle bracelet started beeping real loud in the airport,
Exactly. I was like, what is that noise? I was like, what? I'm like, nothing. Stop looking at my leg, But at the end of the day, it just didn't work. It didn't, for whatever reasons, it didn't work out. And I came back to Israel and I started teaching in other places. That's when I had that short stint in other places for about a year. For a year. And after a year, I was looking again for a job. Whenever I got fired a few times, I don't go into it. And I was kidding. And 3 times. And I ended up calling Rabbi Calland, actually through my wife. She told me, call him. I said, I'm not calling him. And she goes, call him. I'm like, I'm not calling him. She goes, call him. I said, you call him. So she called him. Called him. Called him. And if she hadn't done it, I probably wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be, hopefully I'd be here, but I wouldn't be involved in this beautiful place I've rented in order to, for this interview. No, but I probably wouldn't be an Aish. So I ended up there, and I ended up getting a job for the summer. So they weren't looking to hire people just for the summer. Went well, and then we continued, and that's where I am today. That's the quick and easy.
Beautiful. So how did you start developing kind of your signature style, which I would describe as 3 parts comedy show, 1 part Jewish content?
I thought you were 3 parts comedy, 1 part something else, and 0 parts content.
Which is why people love it. You've obviously developed a signature style at this point, and people who we'll mention later some places people can go to hear them online. But was humor something that was always a part of you, a part of your life? Were you the class clown growing up? Like, what was what was that role?
Yeah, I was the director of the clowns in school. That's what I was. It's a personality thing. I was always involved in humor, I guess. The developing of the classes has been just through trial and error, basically. It wasn't really, and I say this to anybody who wants to teach, I say to them, when they go, what can I do to teach and whatever? I said, well, first of all, don't do the whole bar mitzvah thing. Yeah, and I don't care if you're religious or secular, you know what I'm talking about. Like, we're like, you get up in front of everyone, you're like, parents and friends, in this week's portion, I would like to, don't do that. It's not talk to people. Just talk to them. Talk to them. When I teach, as you've seen, it's not like I'm scripting something and it's a lecture. I'm having a conversation like I'm having a one-on-one. Happens to be there could be 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or 100 or 10,000 people. This happens to be that never happened, but it could be that there's 10,000 people in the room.
I'm glad your arithmetic skills are still fine-tuned.
Exactly. Yeah. So whatever, that was a development, and it was my personality is my personality. So it was just talking. That's it. I teach like I would talk with you. That's it.
Beautiful. So would you say that growing up, did you ever do anything with humor though, specifically, or any stand-up comedy or anything of that nature, performance, like you incorporate a lot of voices and shtick into your routine, if you will?
Yeah, none of that was learned or gone. It's just from life. I was never in any sort of acting stuff. I was never in any sort of stand-up comedy. I don't want to say you either have it or you don't, because you can develop certain ideas, but there is a concept of personality that you either have a certain type of personality or a different type of personality. My personality was always outgoing and enjoyable. I hope other people took it that way, but I meant to say, like, chill, just chill, just live a life, enjoy yourself, let's have a good time, to the extent that even when I was in yeshiva and I would give over what we would call like divrei halacha, words of Jewish law, like more of the cut and dry stuff, which isn't like so entertaining, but people would walk out laughing when I'm talking about just Jewish law, so, because it was just the way that I did it,
Boy, he's terrible at that.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't follow that law either, But that's that. That's just, no, but I was not involved in any sort of whatever, productions or comedy stuff or whatever it is. None of that stuff. Now, I'll tell you something else even. When people come and they want me to teach a lot of times, okay, a lot of people will find a lot of my stuff funny. And they'll say to me, okay, we want you to teach for our group. And we want you to be funny. So I say, look, listen, it's not my thing. It's not like, I'm not a comedian. I'm not writing lines. So for me, if you're looking for me to be funny, it's hard for me to do that. I don't plan that. I just teach. I teach. And it happens to be my personality brings out the humor. So if someone's looking for the comedy, I have a lot of respect for comedians, not the ones that have like the dirty mouths or whatever, but really there's a lot of comedians out there, a lot of respect, because you have to be writing material all the time to be funny. For me, I get the opportunity to I'm teaching Torah. If it's not funny, fine. So I'm teaching Torah. If it is funny, great. So then you enjoy yourself, so I don't have that pressure, so to speak, of a comedian.
Right.
I'm not out there to like do such a thing.
Have you ever thought of doing that at all, just on the side for fun? I'm sure it's been suggested.
Yeah, people suggest it all the time. So someone came over to me after a class. I remember it was in Herzliya, in a place called IDC. And after I taught there, this girl comes over to me and says, you're in the wrong business. The way she said it, I thought like she didn't like the class. I was like, oh, like, what should I?
Quit your day job.
She's like, you should be a comedian. You should go into movies, whatever. So okay, people say it all the time. The answer is, like I said before, no, I have no interest in doing it at all. If I happen to be in a place, like I was not long ago, I was in South Africa, and we walked by places. I was like, this is a comedy club. It was like a thing. If I happen to be there and whatever it is, to just jump up and have a good time. So yeah, I'd probably just do such a thing like that. But it's not something which I would ever consider to do full time or something that I would, it's just not. It's not my thing. Not my thing.
Teaching just pays too well.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you see my bling bling through the everything going on my computer and whatnot, but see my chain? No? All right, there is none. But yeah, it's just not my thing.
What kinds of topics do you enjoy teaching? Like, how did you develop some of the main topics?
Yeah, you are good at this. The topics that I teach, pretty much all of them are personal topics. I mean, at this stage, it's hard for me to be able to necessarily pin down every one of them because of the fact that I've just been doing it for so long. But certainly in the beginning, I could have told you a story behind every class. Whatever I'm teaching about is something that I personally go through or am going through. Something
Can you just give me like 5 or 7 examples? I'm just kidding.
Okay, 5 or 7 examples. I can do it off the top of my head because there's other things. Okay, so off the top of my head, number one is judging favorably. I have a whole class on judging favorably. Why? Because I felt I wasn't judged favorably at a certain time, or I could be also seem very good because I don't judge as favorably as I should. But I think it was particular. Someone judged me in a way which I didn't like it. So I started thinking about the concept. I was like, well, why would somebody do that? And what does Judaism have to say about the topic, et cetera, until you build it up. Anger management, right? I don't have an anger problem, but okay, fine, I do. But arrogance, does that come from arrogance and this, that, the other? I got upset, or someone got upset at me, and what is that? Where does that come from? Where can we develop it? Can we learn it? Can we understand it from a Jewish perspective, from a psychological perspective, etc.? Power of speech. We talk about the concept of how we talk. Is it important? Is it not important? we've said things that have insulted people, and people have said things that have insulted me, right? So I get the idea, hey, let's learn a little bit about that idea, right? Small steps to big success. We take on too much and then you burn out. So take a little bit less. So how does that develop? And what is it, just such a thing like that? And so on and so forth. I mean, I only gave you 4, but I'm welcome to give you another 30 if you want to have titles. You know what I'm saying? Based on Migdash, I have a class on the temple. Why? The temple, the whole class is developed on what does it even mean? Because if you asked me, even though I grew up as a religious Jew my whole life, I had no clue what it means, the temple, so I learned for it myself. And once I get it myself, I'm like, hey, by the way, what's the point of the temple? And everyone goes, yeah, good question. I'm like, yeah, I know, because I had the same question. And then we develop. So they're all personal. When people ask me to give classes, they want me to give, can you give this particular class that this guy teaches, use his material and give it over, right? I.e. the canned goods stuff. The answer is no, I can't. I mean, I could, I can say it back, but it's very hard for me unless I take it, learn it, and I can relate to it, and it's something that I can make my own. So that's where I've developed my stuff, my material, and over the past couple of years, I've developed a lot more because of just life. Just pay attention to life, how it goes, and how we can work on ourselves, how we can change, we can become better, etc. How we can become worse, and that's how I develop my classes.
Is there a favorite one that you have?
There are favorite categories, and they're generally not under the category of humor. My particular favorites are much more thinking based, which is hard because some of the groups I get are like 9 in the morning, 10 in the morning, and they're on American
time. I
say
some of the groups you get are really dumb.
That's another way of saying it. I'd like to say it differently. It's the morning.
Judging favorably.
Exactly. Don't get angry at them. But
for this group, it's always the morning.
Exactly. It's always the night. That's the problem. The middle of the night. But the favorite type of topics are thinking topics. Thinking. You have to think a little bit. Unfortunately, we go through life now where people just don't think. They just don't think. And I talk now like when I was a lad, I remember we all used to think. No, when I was a kid, so we didn't have like all these different gadgets and these different things. We didn't have this stuff, right? So if somebody wanted to really waste away, in all seriousness, thank God I never got involved with this, but people either got stoned or they got drunk, and you put yourself away from any sort of thought process. Now you don't have to do that anymore because you could just watch other people getting stoned and drunk, right? And on YouTube or whatever, and then just waste away your time. My particular favorite is to talk about thinking. That's the idea. Thinking, opening your mind, using your mind. And that's one. And then the other concepts is, I would say my whole goal in everything I teach is what we call paradigm shifts. But if you know how to spell, it's paradigm shift. Paradigm shift of understanding you thought it was one way. Let's see what it's really all about.
What would be an example of the paradigm shift?
Oh, well, the paradigm shift would be an idea of, let's say, what's the ultimate goal for Judaism. If I can give a shout out to Rabbi Klatzko, Rabbi Benzion Klatzko, who I'm sure you know well, and many people are
familiar. On the podcast, of course.
Ah, nice, beautiful. Now everyone knows him, all 12 people.
Hey, 15 and growing quickly. Okay?
No, my kids are watching. I meant the 12 kids. And so slowly but surely. Klatzko, one thing that I heard from him, which is not what we would call a novelty, but unfortunately it's so misconstrued, is what is Judaism altogether? What is it? So whereas many people look at Judaism as a religion and as rules, it's a paradigm shift of maybe it's not rules, maybe look at it a little differently. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe the idea of everything in life you could look at in 2 ways. Yeah, you look at someone as, wow, that person is so tardy. They're so, they're so late to everything. Or you could say they're a free spirit, right? You could say a person is so messy. Or you could say, oh, they're so creative, right? So you can look at Judaism as it's so restricting, or wow, there's so many guidelines to help me get somewhere, right? So it's that would be one, I guess, probably one of the biggest paradigm shifts that I see when I teach, is that element of just understanding what Judaism is. And this goes across the spectrum from people that grew up from a completely secular, for those who grew up very, very religious. Sometimes we miss the goal. We get so caught up in the details that we miss the bigger picture of what it's about. And I'm not saying the details aren't important. They're important. But the bigger picture is the ultimate connection and relationship with the creator of the world. So I would say that would be one. It's not restrictive. It's not outdated. It's actually very relevant to your life in 2012. And now we're in 2018. It's still relevant. Now, that would be one of the paradigm shifts.
I think another one that I've encountered, in hearing you, has been that it seems like you like to break down stereotypes and sort of traverse those gaps that often, unfortunately, separate people, and certainly within the Jewish people, so many rifts and such so many gaping caverns really between different kinds of Jews. If I could be poetic.
Yeah, like I say, so many gaping gapes. Yeah.
The gapes are just gaping, but how do you actually go about doing that? And if that's something that's important to you, why is it important to you?
So crucially important to me, and I know where you're coming from, because one of the classes we often do when you bring groups is that of a connection to judging favorably and understanding people and knowing where they're coming from and recognizing their backgrounds. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. That's probably one of my biggest things that I do. And I'll come into a room, and when I walk into the room, they'll be a little bit nervous. And I come in with my black hat and, swinging the tzitzis a little bit, like, what are you doing? I specifically like to walk in with a black hat for them to see me and to stereotype me. Look at me, watch me, stereotype me, and then let me start talking with you. And then you're going to start to see, wait a minute, this guy's not what I thought he was. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe these people, that we call religious or orthodox or right wing or fanatic or Taliban, was that too far? Right? Or, or whatever you call it. Maybe they're people just like I'm a person, and they're also a person. And I think it breaks down those barriers. Now, you say, like, what's important about that is, like, I don't want to sound too cliche here. It's what I do. I want to sound cliche. We're meant to be a family. When I say that's the reality, the Jewish people are meant to be. We're a little dysfunctional, but we're a family. And you have to understand that, like, get to know me a little bit. If you want to hate me, that's fine. But first know me and hate me. Don't just hate me before you know me. You understand? People are people. They put on different costumes. They have different backgrounds. At the end of the day, everybody just wants to be happy. You want to have a family. You want to make a living. You want to get along. So just stop fighting. I think, who was our buddy who said, stop with the fighting, stop with the pain, right? Enough of that. And so that is a very big paradigm shift. To be able to look at me, judge me, hear me, and see me totally differently. And I think that would open up the way the whole world, that's not just a Jewish thing, this is the entire world can learn from such an idea. That would be big time. Big time.
Are there ways that you think that either you have already or can try to export that message in other ways, in other realms of your life besides the teaching that you're doing? But are there other places in your life where that ethos, if you will, express itself, in other contexts?
Reword the question.
I don't want to.
Okay. Well, in that case, I would say 7.
I'll just word it.
That's the number. What's the question?
The question is like this: are there other places in life that you can bring outside of the classroom that you feel that, especially being in Israeli society, which is unfortunately so polarized, are there other ways that you feel that you either can or want to try to traverse those those gaps?
I mean, this is a very, very big question. I happen to have my study partner, my chavrusa, Shimi Kaufman is his name. Him and his partner, E.T.L. Goldvich, started a thing in Aish HaTorah called Aish Israel. But that's exactly what they're aiming at doing now. And thank God they actually are making a lot of headway in this, of connecting Jews with their heritage and allowing them to see from a different perspective what Judaism is about through different educational models of either, I don't know what the word is you'd call it, I don't know what they call it, but like meet and greets. You have religious and secular people.
How do you say that in Hebrew, meet and greet?
Meet and greet, אני חושב. My friend Dudu, So that's different ideas like that. It's simply just being, I don't want to use this line, but I'm going to, but just being a good person, whatever that means. For more on that, come to Aish HaTorah, right? Or more, because I say this is more ink, right? But simply being a good person. I spoke with a guy today. Amazing. This guy is amazing. A guy came to see me. I don't know why he came to see me. He said he preferred to speak in person. I think we could have spoken over the phone, but he actually came in. He was, I don't want to say where, but he was in Israel, but about 45 minutes away from where I am. He called me up. I had never met him before. He saw some of my classes online. He said he wanted to talk to me. So I said, okay. He came in, we met, and he told me how he's a religious Jew. And now he's working in an Israeli company with primarily secular Israelis. He's a religious guy. He wants to know, if I had any advice, what to do, what not to do, etc., how to interact. He didn't even need me to say anything because he said it himself. He said that so many walls and barriers were broken down just by him being, behaving in a good way, in an appropriate fashion, speaking in a very refined way, treating others with respect in a way that they themselves start to then come closer to him and say, hey, like, what's this all about? Whereas they never would have spoken if they walked by each other in the street. Yeah, one has a kippah, a yarmulke, a beanie, capo, what do we call this thing? Sombrero pequeño, and the other guy's not wearing any of them. They're not talking. Hey, but you know what? If you just behave a certain way, which is some sort of Menschlichkeit, you translate that, right? Just behave like a human being, and people pick up on that and they want to connect. Be a good person, you know what I'm saying? Respect people. I think that's the Mishnah Navos, right? It's going to say, Eze Mechubad, who is an honorable person, Hamechabed Tabriot, someone who honors other people. When you honor other people, people start to earn their respect, their trust, and it breaks down barriers.
What do you think is next on the horizon for you? I mean, do you see yourself doing kind of the teaching thing for a long time? Do you see yourself engaging in other projects, new ideas, new projects, new frontiers? Are there any emerging passions, if you will, in the Rav Gav orbit?
I've recently started a business in Colorado, Seattle, and California, which I can't go into right now. But besides that company, which is just flowering beautifully, it gets me so high to think about it.
Import, export.
Yeah. That's right. Let's call it that. Anyway, I have no idea what's going to be. I have no clue. I plan on doing what I'm doing and hopefully doing it on a bigger capacity. We've been having a lot of talks with a bunch of my colleagues and how can we go bigger? How can we reach more Jews to be able to learn more about the heritage and about the background and to know what Judaism is all about? This medium that we're doing right now is a tremendous one. Podcasts or different little clips, videos, the ways of getting out the message. The basic similar idea is what I'm doing already, but to try to, what's the word? The fancy word is to use this, how to utilize how to utilize the tools that we have around us to do it. So you're asking, what do I see in the future? I have no idea. I don't have any other plans on the horizon other than to do what I'm doing now and hopefully up my game to be able to impact people positively on a grander scale.
Well, right now you're doing it in the best place on earth, right? You're overlooking the Western Wall. Hard to get a better office than that. What's that like, just going to work every day in the most magical place on earth?
Exactly. I was going to say Mickey is wonderful. And Pluto was great until they demoted him from being a planet. But to tell you, unfortunate reality is that like anything in life, I wish I could say, oh my gosh, it's magical. Oh, it's just like every day, man, I feel like I'm getting closer and closer. But the reality
is your other business now.
Yeah, exactly. And back to that one. I'm there every day. When you're there every day, I'm there I'm there for a lot. So you get used to it. It's a sad thing. You get used to it. It's amazing when you ask me what's it like. It's amazing. But you get used to it. When you get used to it, it becomes a little more difficult to appreciate. And I get what makes it easier is when people come, when students come, and you watch them to live vicariously through them. It reignites. They're like, whoa, and you're like, you know what? Yeah, whoa, you're right. Whoa, it's an amazing place. The energy of the area you never get tired of. The energy is amazing. Meaning, there's people from all over the world, all different shapes and sizes, not to get too personal, but backgrounds, religions, people. It's an exciting place. It's never a boring day. But in terms of the Kedusha, the holiness, the sanctity that you have to tap into in order to tap into, you've got to focus. When a person doesn't focus, then you don't got it. That's the reality.
So, Rav Gav, we got in wrapping up, I know you have a little routine or shtick that you do at the end of your classes. You like to summarize the contents of said talks very quickly, rapidly, if you will. Yeah. And I'd like to challenge you. Would you like to try to summarize our discussion today?
Are you serious? You want me to do that?
I would love to if you could do that.
That'd be crazy if I could do that.
20 minutes and it'll sound live because I'll just splice it together.
Amazing. Okay, listen, I'll give it a try. I don't know.
Let's do it, baby.
give it a try. Yeah, so let's wrap it up. So here we go. So we saw from the beginning, very simply put, understanding the fact about where I'm coming from, my background, where I get to the end, I got to Woodman, New York, putting myself up until eventually I ended up in Israel through the idea of the thing. But then we went a little further. We said, how to get involved in Aish HaTorah and the different things that I'm doing. So we went to the idea, when I simply put, I wasn't involved altogether. I was learning Cola, but of course, my representatives in the Predators will meet the guy called Jim McCalley. One of them says, well, I'm not even interested in the first place. Why are you having me in my office? Waste my time, waste your time, go to England. Before you know it, at the end of the day, I'm not even involved in England whatsoever. Forget the whole thing. Come back a year later and think, the good Lord, 11.5 years later, here I am. I mean, humor is something which is important to me, but I would say I'm a comedian. I understand the fact that at the end of the day, this is something which I like to go and be funny, but it's not something which I go and I push and I drive. And I really admire the people that are doing this concept. But you watch your mouth a little bit. Don't speak so dirty, right? But instead, that's what I did with the things. And if it does go well, at least I taught a little bit of Torah. Okay, so I see it a little bit further after. Oh, no, I got blanking a little bit in the last question. What was the next one? Okay, so different classes I have, different things I like to teach you the things that you understand, like the things that are happened to me that are important to me that I've lived in my life. And person goes to them personally enough, so I'm going to do it differently. I got anger at some things. I got small sense of big success, or judging favorably, or anger management. We said a little bit of small. These are the things, or power of speech. These are things that I myself have gone through. So if I go through, I can tell other people as well. Yes, a paradigm shift, a paradigm shift in a way that people see the idea of what Judaism is about. It's a relationship. And yes, you're right. Also bringing the stereotypes that people put on my hat, jump up a little bit, come back down, get my hat. Understand that when a person goes to see it, now you spend a little more. It's going to see a little bit of my friends. We go on. We actually love it. Not only in the classroom itself, but it's just be a man, just be a human being, just be something that says wonderful and great. And the person does such a thing. Wow, how different the world would be. There's one last thing which I forgot, but I think that was decent. Yes.
Fantastic.
Oh my goodness.
And Rav Gav, I only had to give you 3.5 hours offline to come back and do that. That was great.
Oh, yeah.
No, that was actually on demand. Very impressive. And Rav Gav, let the adoring audience know, where can they consume you, or at least your content?
So I do have to say something before. It's very important to know something. I don't want to say where I was. I was somewhere recently, and there was a person there that had seen one of my classes, presentations, whatever you want to call it, lectures, and he very much enjoyed it. It was very funny. It was very inspiring, it was incredible, of course. So I went to a community recently, and this woman told me, she says to me, I want to tell you something. The classes you have online. I said, yeah. She goes, they're horrible. So I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, what's horrible about it? She goes, I came home raving to my husband about I met this rabbi in Israel who was so funny. So I sat him down and I found you online, and it just wasn't funny. And you should just know, that stuff is just, you should take it all off. I was like, okay, thank you so much. Thank you. I'll tell you, this is the problem. It's a totally different world if you come to my class in person or you're watching something online. Totally different experience. Totally different experience. The stuff, I'll tell you where to find these stuff online. If you're looking for a comedy show, it's not going to be there. It's real stuff. There might be humor in it. You have to take a look yourself and see it. You want to see it and really get the real deal? Come to Israel, right? Come to Israel. Come to the old city, and you'll get the real deal. But if you're not coming, so you look online, go on YouTube, Rav Gav, RAVGAV. Just look it up. I don't have a page yet until you make me one. But just search my name, either RAVGAV or Gavriel Friedman. That would be spelled as it sounds. If you can't spell it, then don't watch my stuff, right? But that's Gavriel Friedman.
Back to that thinking.
Exactly. Gavriel Friedman. It's Friedman, I'll give it to you, as Friedman. You go back to my other business, Friedman. That's Gavriel Friedman or Rav Gav on YouTube. And that's got a lot of stuff in there. There's a lot of stuff going on over there. A couple of short clips. Most of them are like between 45 minutes and an hour. And if you're looking to think and grow just a little bit, that would be a couple of addresses. If you really want more, you're welcome to contact you personally, and you'll get more of that.
Beautiful. Rabbi Gavriel Friedman, Rav Gav, thank you so much for joining us, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much. Yeah, very good. It's amazing. Thank you so much. And I guess we'll do this again next week. I think it is.
You know it, baby. Not recorded, but sure.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
This has been Ari Koretsky on Jews You Should Know. Please visit us at jewsyoushouldknow.com and subscribe at iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you consume podcasts. Find us on social media at Jews You Should Know. If you'd like to become a supporter of this podcast, we would greatly appreciate that, and you can do so by visiting patreon.com. That's patreon.com/Jews You Should Know. Finally, if you have enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review so that we can continue to grow and introduce many more people to Jews You Should Know.